Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Oh,
Okay, good. Because today we're looking at,
oh, this is going to be a good one.
yeah, it's called the Erich Fromm Deception, how his influence damages men and society. And this one really gets into stuff you've mentioned before, like wanting to understand those like hidden contracts, right?
Yeah.
Especially like in institutions and how they've changed over time.
Yeah.
This book really goes there, but with like kind of a controversial take, I think.
Yeah. It does. It kind of turns things upside down.
It does. So for people who don't know,
Flips the script. Yeah.
it's like, who is this Erich Fromm guy? And like, why is this book saying he's a problem?
Well, he was this, pretty famous psychologist. Lots of people know his work.
Like kind of a big deal back in the day.
Yeah, for sure. But this book argues that his ideas, although they sound good on the surface, they've actually caused some harm.
Oh, okay. So like good intentions gone wrong.
Yeah, kind of. Like he was all about peace and love.
Right. That's
Yeah.
what I always heard.
Yeah, but the book says his emphasis on things like collectivism and needing authority figures actually eroded individual freedom.
Oh, interesting. So it's like we traded independence for like a sense of security.
Exactly, and without even realizing it, right. And that ties right back into those covert contracts you were talking about.
Right. Those like unspoken rules that kind of limit our choices.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like Sormam was some evil mastermind.
No, not at all.
It's more like his theories,
Unintended consequences.
yeah, like had these ripple effects that he maybe didn't anticipate.
Right. And the book even argues that his theories, when mixed with ideas from the Frankfurt School, they actually helped create this whole woke ideology and this culture of political correctness that can feel very limited.
Okay, whoa. Back up a sec. Frankfurt School. Now, that rings a bell, but I'm fuzzy on the details. Can you give us a quick recap?
Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
So basically, they were a group of intellectuals back in the 1920s, mostly in Germany, and their work, which is known as critical theory, it was all about challenging traditional power structures and societal...
It's the status quo?
Yeah, exactly. They were really critical of capitalism. They saw it as like the root of all oppression.
Okay. Starting to come back to me now.
Yeah.
But how does that connect back to Fromm and this whole damaging men thing?
So the book makes a pretty bold claim.
Okay.
It says that the Frankfurt School's ideas, especially when combined with Fromm's emphasis on escape and freedom, actually laid the groundwork for demonizing traditional masculinity.
Wow, okay.
It argues that, nowadays men are often seen as inherently privileged and oppressive, which ignores their unique challenges and contributions throughout history.
So it's like these intellectual movements, even though they were aiming for positive change,
Of course.
they ended up creating a new set of problems, particularly for men.
Yeah, that's the main argument.
Okay. I see how this connects to what we've been talking about, understanding those historical shifts in our institution.
Yeah.
But is this all just theory? Or does the book give actual real world examples?
Oh, it definitely tries to back up its claims. Like, for example, when it's talking about how over-socialization can stifle individual action, the book points to the Tulsa Race Massacre in 1921.
Oh.
It suggests that people were so focused on maintaining social harmony, they failed to stand up against a really grave injustice.
Yeah. That's a powerful example. It makes you think about how the pressure to conform can sometimes have really devastating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it sounds like the book is arguing that that men are especially vulnerable to this kind of pressure today.
Exactly. It argues that men are constantly being told to suppress their natural instincts like assertiveness and competitiveness to fit into this new mold of what's considered acceptable masculinity.
So it's not just that traditional masculine traits are being devalued.
Right.
It's that they're being actively demonized.
Exactly. And that leads to a lot of men feeling lost and confused about their place in the world.
Yeah, totally. If you're constantly being told your natural instincts are wrong or toxic,
Right.
it's got to mess with your head,
Absolutely.
Does it offer any solutions, like how men can navigate this?
It does, and we'll get more into that later.
Right.
But the core message is about reclaiming masculine autonomy.
Okay. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's about men understanding their inherent strengths and values and rejecting any ideology that tries to diminish their worth.
All right, I am hooked. Let's unpack this idea of masculine autonomy more. What exactly does the book say men should do to reclaim their sense of self? We'll find out more after a quick word from our sponsor.
Yeah.
See you in a bit.
All right. So we were talking about this whole idea of masculine autonomy.
Right.
And how it's kind of under attack.
Yeah.
Well, the book goes deeper into how this plays out, in different areas of life.
Yeah, because it's not just some theoretical thing. It's
Yeah.
affecting guys in their everyday world. So where does the book say this impact is most noticeable? Like, where do you really see it?
One of the biggest battlegrounds is education.
Okay.
It argues that universities especially have become like breeding grounds for this woke ideology, often pushing aside traditional academic rigor
Really?
in favor of promoting, specific social justice narrative.
So it's saying that instead of encouraging like open debate and critical thinking,
Right.
colleges are more focused on pushing a particular worldview.
Yeah, that's the argument. The book suggests this is done through things like, safe spaces and trigger warning,
Right.
which it sees as attempts to like shield students from ideas that might challenge their beliefs.
Okay, but aren't those things meant to protect students who might be sensitive to certain topics?
Yeah, I mean, that's the stated intention, right?
Right.
But the book argues that they've gone too far and created an environment where intellectual curiosity and honest debate are stifled.
Oh.
Like, it gives this analogy of, a physics student who discovers this groundbreaking theory,
Right.
but he's afraid to share it because it contradicts the established laws of physics. It's suggesting that, fear of offense shouldn't limit intellectual exploration.
So it's like we're trading intellectual freedom
Yeah.
for the sake of just not upsetting anyone.
Right.
Okay. But how does this specifically relate to men and this whole erosion of masculinity thing?
So the book argues that many of these woke ideologies portray men as like inherently privileged and oppressive,
Okay.
which can make male students feel like they're constantly under suspicion or being blamed for societal problems. It suggests this creates a hostile learning environment for young men,
Yeah.
making it difficult for them to engage in open dialogue
Right.
or explore their own identities without fear of judgment.
Right. Yeah. If you're constantly being told you're part of the problem,
Yeah.
it's gonna affect how you see yourself, right?
Totally.
And how you interact with others.
Exactly.
Does the book does it give any examples of how this plays out, like in real life?
Yeah, it shares a story about a student named John who was basically ostracized
Oh wow.
for questioning the tenets of critical theory. He was basically canceled for daring to like think for himself
Really?
and challenge the prevailing narrative.
That's a pretty scary thought.
It is.
You can't even express your own opinions
Right.
without like fear of being punished or silenced.
Exactly. And the book argues that this climate of fear and self-censorship isn't limited to college campuses.
Oh really?
It sees the same dynamic playing out in the media as well.
So it's not just about education.
No.
It's about how these ideas are being spread and like reinforced through popular culture.
Exactly. The book claims that mainstream media often presents like a skewed and negative portrayal of men, reinforcing the idea that masculinity is toxic or outdated. Points to examples like the way men are often depicted in, movies and TV shows as like bumbling idiots or emotionally stunted,
Right.
or even, predatory and abusive.
Yeah, it's like the media is constantly bombarding us with these negative stereotypes about men.
Yeah.
Which just reinforces these harmful ideas about masculinity.
Right. And the book argues that this has a real impact on how men perceive themselves and how society views them.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Totally.
If you're constantly told you're a problem,
Yeah.
you're more likely to start believing it.
Exactly. It's like that saying, if you hear something enough times, you start to believe it, even if it's not true.
Right.
And the book is suggesting that this is exactly what's happening with masculinity. It's being demonized and distorted by a media that's more interested in pushing a narrative than presenting a balanced view.
Right. And it's not just about entertainment, right?
No.
The book also sees this bias playing out in news coverage and political commentary,
Yeah.
where men's issues are often like minimized,
Right.
or framed in a negative light.
Exactly.
So it's like this negative portrayal of men is coming at us from all sides,
Yeah.
from the entertainment we consume to the news we read to the conversations we have online.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's a pretty pervasive message.
It is.
And the book argues that this constant barrage of negativity has real consequences. Not just for men's self-esteem, but for their relationships, their careers, their overall well-being.
Totally. It's like they're being set up to fail.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way. But, it's not all bad news, is it? The book, does it offer any solution? Like how men can navigate this tricky terrain?
It does. And that's what we're going to dive into next.
Okay.
We'll explore the specific actions men can take to reclaim their autonomy and build a more fulfilling life, even in a world that often seems stacked against them.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so we've spent the last two parts really unpacking some pretty intense stuff
Yeah.
about how these, intellectual movements might have unintentionally created this crisis of masculinity.
Right.
And it can feel kind of overwhelming.
That-
Where do we even go from here,
Right.
But this book, it's not all doom and gloom.
No, not at all.
It offers a way forward, doesn't it?
It does. And this is where things get really interesting, especially for anyone feeling, stuck or lost.
Right.
The book argues that the key to overcoming these challenges is reclaiming masculine autonomy.
Okay, so what does that actually look like? Like, how do you do that?
It lays out a few different strategies,
Okay.
but it all starts with understanding your own values. The book really emphasizes the importance of what it calls traditional values.
Okay.
Like things like family, hard work, discipline, personal responsibility.
So it's not about rejecting everything modern. It's more about rediscovering those core principles
Right.
that have always made men,
Yeah, strong and resilient.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that those values have stood the test of time for a reason.
Right.
They provide a solid foundation
Right.
for building a fulfilling life no matter what's happening in the culture around you.
Makes sense. But values alone aren't enough, right? You need to actually put them into practice.
Absolutely.
What does the book suggest men do to actually reclaim their autonomy?
Action is key.
Okay.
The book emphasizes the importance of men taking an active role in their own lives and in their community.
Okay.
This could mean getting involved in local politics,
Okay.
volunteering, mentoring younger men,
Right.
or simply being more present and engaged with their families.
It's about stepping up and taking responsibility, not just for yourself, but for the people around you, right?
Yeah.
Being a leader, a protector, a provider.
Precisely. And the book argues that this sense of purpose and responsibility is essential
Right.
for building a strong sense of masculine identity.
Okay. Yeah.
It's about feeling like you have a meaningful role to play in the world, that your contributions are valued and appreciated.
But let's be real. You
Yeah.
know, it's tough to do any of that when you feel isolated.
Right.
Or like you're fighting an uphill battle alone.
Sure.
Does the book address that?
It does. It stresses the importance of community.
Okay.
It argues that supportive communities of like-minded men
Right.
are crucial for overcoming the challenges of modern life.
So it's about finding your tribe.
Yeah.
Like finding the guys who share your values.
Exact guys who can offer support and encourage.
Yeah.
These communities provide a space where men can just be themselves,
Right.
without judgment
Well-
or pressure to conform.
Yeah.
They can learn from each other, challenge each other, and grow together.
It's like that saying, iron sharpens iron. Right?
Exactly.
You need those strong bonds with other men to help you
Right.
stay sharp, stay focused on your goals.
Absolutely. And speaking of guidance,
Sure.
the book also highlights the importance of mentorship.
Okay.
It argues that having a mentor, someone who's been there and done that,
Right.
can be invaluable
Yeah.
for navigating the challenges of life and making wise choices.
Yeah, it's like having a guide on your journey.
Yeah.
Someone who can offer wisdom and perspective,
Right.
help you avoid pitfall, and inspire you to reach your full potential.
Exactly. And it's not just about receiving mentorship.
Right.
The book also encourages men to become mentors themselves, to pass on their knowledge and experience
Yeah.
to younger generations.
So it's about paying it forward.
Exactly.
Creating that cycle of positive influence that
Yeah.
strengthens, men and communities for years to come.
Exact. And all of this, embracing traditional values, taking action, building communities, seeking mentorship.
Right.
It's all part of reclaiming that masculine autonomy the book keeps talking about. It's about defining your own path, setting your own goals,
Right.
and living a life that aligns with your deepest values.
Yeah, that's a powerful message.
Yeah.
And while the book does dive into some complex societal issues,
Sure.
it ultimately boils down to something pretty simple.
Yeah.
Men taking ownership of their lives.
Yeah.
And becoming the best versions of themselves.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
And the book argues that this journey isn't about, rejecting women or seeking dominance.
Right.
It's about men and women working together, each embracing their unique strengths and contributing to a more balanced and harmonious society.
It's about recognizing that true equality comes from celebrating our differences.
Exactly.
Not trying to erase them.
Right. It's about understanding that men and women are different, but those differences can complement each other,
Yeah.
making our relationships and our world richer and more vibrant.
Well, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about.
I think so too.
This has been a deep dive in every sense of the word.
It really has.
If anyone wants to, to explore these ideas further,
Yeah.
check out the book
Definitely.
called The Erich Fromm Deception.
Yeah.
And it's available on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
That's right.
It's a challenging read, but it's definitely worth the effort for anyone, looking to understand the forces shaping modern masculinity
Yeah.
and find a path to a more fulfilling life.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep those minds churning.
Yeah.
And remember, the power to shape your future
Yeah.
lies within you.
Absolutely.